Bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, dum, dum, da-dum.
That portion of the white man in your body. Because if the white man is the devil, it is clear that he is running through your veins. What purification are you going to indulge in to clean or rid yourself of the demon that you are made up of?
So now, once again, it's obvious that you have very poor listening skills. Right. You understand?
Right.
I'm letting it go.
Yes, sir.
You just said what percentage are you?
That's right.
I just said 100%. Why? Because your father determines your tribe, your nationality, and your spirit. You understand
Okay.
that?
Oh, hold on. Nah, we ain't giving you no line. Hold on. We're not doing that.
I read the disclaimer on your website. You're a humanitarian. Why didn't you shake his hand?
Because I'll give you an answer. Hold on. I'm going to give you an answer. Let me give you an answer. I am a humanitarian. That means I'm for humans. I don't see the white man as a fucking human. So that's why I'm asking you.
Because you never said he's the
You are a hybrid. So I'm trying to ask you, as a hybrid.
I'm a hybrid according to who?
Listen, you are the iceberg lettuce of the black community. There's romaine lettuce and there's iceberg lettuce. You are iceberg lettuce. Yo, why you ready? Oh, we got him out of here. We just adjusted him.
The first thing that I heard Polite say,
He out of here.
Polite rather, was y'all upset Baba, right? Baba got blew up.
I'll give you an answer. Hold on. I'm gonna give you an answer. Let me give you an answer. I am a humanitarian. White man's a fucking human. So that's why I'm asking you.
Because you never said he's the
You are a hybrid. So I'm trying to ask you, as a hybrid.
I'm a hybrid according to who?
Listen, you are the iceberg lettuce of the black community. There's romaine lettuce and there's iceberg lettuce. You are iceberg lettuce. Yo, why you ready? Oh, we got him out of here. We just adjusted him.
The first thing that I heard Polite say,
He out of here.
Polite rather, was y'all upset Baba, right? Baba got blue eyes. Y'all upset Baba though.
Papa's black.
But he's black, but he got blue eyes. Now, you going on phenotype.
He's an albino.
He said,
That's not an albino.
that's a brother though.
An albino is a black man.
That's a brother, but nobody questions Baba at all.
Hold on, my brother, hold on.
Just for the record, Baba's my brother too. I don't question him either.
Yeah.
And I know you are the seed of your father. Now you come out here, he want percentages. Your brother cut you on percentages.
Damn, I ain't turn the TV camera on.
Where do you get
Hold on.
Where do you get
Hold on. You gotta answer this.
I thought I turned the camera on. Yo, Sonetta done posted some old stuff up here. I followed Sonetta TV and the House of Consciousness for a couple years. Really don't follow it that much anymore, but Brother Polite really made his debut to the world through Sonetta TV, and that's how a lot of people know who Brother Polite is.
Answer this.
So
That's not a good question.
So this is Brother Polite going up against some Hebrew Israelites out on the streets. These dudes swear down they got the correct interpretation of the Bible. The way that they worship is the only way to worship. It's just like any other religion, yo. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Catholics, Baptists, Christians, Hebrew Israelites, all these motherfuckers are just confused as shit. Now, the guy who he was talking to first was
Yeah, but Baba
this
know
white
who he
guy.
is. I'm asking you now.
What's the point now?
Baba know who I am. Who the fuck?
So Polite is debating this guy right here, and then after, I guess he got stumped with one of Polite's questions, and then it switched over, and the other guy came up there. But Brother Polite has made his way through the ranks debating theists. He really doesn't believe in a religion or a God per se. And for the past couple years, he has a hashtag that hashtag the black woman is my God. And so it's always fun to hear Brother Polite talk, because the motherfucker is smart as fuck, yo. He's a year younger than I am, but he's a goddamn millionaire just off of his intelligence. He's written books. He's a motivational speaker. He's a counselor. He's a debater. He holds lectures and stuff like that. So he just came up off of his own grind and hustle. And so I really respect him like that. And once again, I listen to a lot of people. I never really agree with anyone I listen to 100%. Brother Polite is one of those people. I love to listen to him, but do I always agree with everything Brother Polite says? Hell no. I love listening to Joe Rogan. I don't agree with him either all the time. Back when I was listening to Alex Jones, love to listen to Alex Jones. Never really agreed with him all the time. There's only one author that I've read several of his books, and I've listened to dozens upon dozens of hours of his lectures, and I have never disagreed with that dude. And that's Dr. Amos Nelson Wilson. Is probably the only guy that the only person, period, that I agree wholeheartly with everything he says, every aspect of his message, and every way he tries to combat the lack of intelligence in the black community. So yeah, it's like, like, what up, bro? You best to agree with me, playa. Yes, sir. Hey, me and you right here, man. It's day one. My A1 from day one. I can't hate on it. Let's see what Brother Polite says to these corner preaching Hebrew Israelites, because they're just weird, yo. The whole thing behind these Hebrew Israelites, they're fucking weird as shit. VDB. If you don't know what VDB mean, you ain't been here long enough, bro. I'm sorry, but you just ain't been here long enough. Everybody should know what VDB mean, bro. But if you don't,
lettuce of the black community. There's romaine lettuce and there's iceberg lettuce. You are iceberg lettuce. Yo, why you ready? Oh, we got him out of here. We just adjusted him.
The first thing that I heard Polite say,
he out of here.
I asked Polite was, y'all accept Baba, right? Baba got blue eyes. Y'all accept Baba though.
Baba's black.
But he's black, but he got blue eyes. Now, if you going on phenotype,
he's an albino.
He said,
that's not an albino.
That's a brother, though.
An albino is a black man.
That's a brother, but nobody questions Baba at all.
Hold on, my brother, hold on.
Just for the record, Baba's my brother, too. I don't question him either.
Yeah.
And I know you are the seed of your father. Now, you come out here, he want percentages. Your brother Puck, you want percentages.
Hold on. Where do you get... Hold on.
Where do you get...
Hold on. You got to answer this. That's not a good question.
Ask for percentage. Where do you get the percentage?
You got to listen.
Answer my question, though.
You got to listen.
Okay, that's right.
When I ask them what percentage, that's based on your Israelite doctrine. Because I know y'all don't deal with DNA. And let me tell you why that's crazy.
Dumb question.
No, it's not a dumb question.
You don't deal with percentage, and you know that.
And that's what. Hold on. Okay, I'm gonna give you an answer. It's a chess move, so I can show people y'all don't deal with mathematics. Ain't no way in hell. Hold on. There's no way in hell you're gonna have a mother and a father and disregard everything that comes from your mother. There's no way in hell. So what part of him is the devil? That's what I'm asking you.
You said
what part of him is the devil? Yes.
Chess move.
Yes.
We don't accept. This is what you said.
To show the people. You don't deal with math.
Accept the Father. We don't deal with math.
That you don't deal with math. There you go.
You deal with math. So now,
when it's convenient.
Now I'm asking for the answer to my question.
Go ahead, brother.
Where do you get the percentage from?
That was my question to y'all, brother. He answered it already. What was his answer? He said he's 100% on camera. He gave me an answer. Listen, but I'm asking you.
And that's what he does. He challenges everything, yo. Why he sound like Denzel though? Hey, Brother Polite get hype, yo. But I really don't like him when he's this hype. I like him. Listen to some of his interviews on Vlad TV, or he was on. He has 4 wives, and he was on the talk show. I forgot the guy's name, but him and 2 of his wives are on the talk show, and it's a whole lot easier to listen to him when he's calm like this, just calm talking. But right now he's out on a street corner. He has the microphone is in his hand. You know, traffic, cars, and then just the interaction with these other brothers. He gets hype and he yells a lot, and they talk over each other. It's interesting, but not as interesting as sitting and listening to him speak about different topics, yo. I'll show you his Instagram real quick. Brother Polite. I follow him on Instagram, yo. The man got. Oh, I was watching that on Instagram. So let me listen to a little bit more of this, and then I'll go to his page. But beautiful wives, all 4 of his wives, bad, bruh, bad. And then he just had a baby with his second wife. Him and his first wife already had a child together, but he just had another kid with one of his other wives. That's it, Brother Polite. That's him. Look him up on Instagram, yo. He on Instagram. Very, very positive, inspirational, motivational dude. You know what I'm saying?
I'm asking you. My first question. Okay. Was, where do you get the percentage from? Whose percentage? Whose percentage of a child? The percentage that makes the basis of a child. When a child is born, Israelites follow the seed of your father. We agree on that, right? Yes. Do you follow that? No, I don't follow that. There's no genetics involved with that. So you follow percentages. That's why you asked about percentage. I asked him about percentage to see if you guys. You already knew that. No. We don't follow percentage. I follow percentage. Okay. Evidently, y'all don't. Percentage from genetic science, brother. From where? Genetic science. What do you do to find? So now, if you wanted to get your percentage, where do you get it from? If you want to get your percentage right now, you go to genetic science and chemistry. But where do you get it from? We get it from a lab, brother. There's a lab four blocks down from up there. Go ahead. You go into the lab and start by a doctor to find out the percentage that makes up your mother and father. DNA. That's right. DNA. We don't have to do that. You want to see them. Y'all don't have to do that. No, you don't. What are y'all using? The Bible? The seed of your father. Hold on. You don't have to use the Bible. Hold on. They're using the Bible. They're using the Bible. Go ahead. The Egyptians didn't use no Bible. They didn't use anything. Yeah, they didn't use the Bible because the Bible didn't exist. Because they would kill all the firstborn males. Because they knew the male determined the seed, and if you get rid of all the men, it cuts off a nation. All right, cool. The woman is just as important. When we say you're the seed of your father, that's not negating that you would get mama's tree. That shit is crazy.
That's just, I don't know. They're having like this shouting contest. I can't listen to too much more of that. Let me look up this page. All I do is type in bro, and he pops up from, because I don't follow a lot of people. So that's him and his new baby he just had. That's his oldest daughter. Him and who is that? Serena Williams. Him and Sticky Fingers. Y'all don't know who Sticky Fingers is, but anyway. Who's this guy? I don't even know who the fuck that is. But he fuck with Floyd Mayweather a lot. Standing in front of his white Rolls Royce. Team Money. He be with Mayweather a lot, yeah.
Yeah, we have a tendency to create the burial, create the graves of the people that we contend that we love. You will be burying your family because of the foods that you feed them. World over, black people are eating ass, pig's ass, swine. And what they're doing with this ass, they're eating the groceries, they're glazing this ass, putting cloves in his ass, pineapples on his ass, and then even a cherry on top of his ass. Only unbeknown to them, it has nematodes in it, round worms that destroy the digestive system and the immune system. Here's another issue we have in the black community. Our sisters are suffering from fibroids. Well, how do they get fibroids? They get fibroids from an excess of estrogen. And what happens is when they can't get these fibroids out their system, the doctor tells them we all have to remove your whole womb. Now look at the dinner table. Turkey high in estrogen. The mac and cheese with milk and all sorts of dairy in it, high in estrogen. The eggnog, high in estrogen. And this is the very formula to give our sisters the fibroids that in turn, we got to do better, fam.
So that's his first wife. They've been married. I think he said they've been married for like 15 years or something. They've been together since he was like 16. That's his other wife. And then he got a light skinned wife. That's him and his first wife. That's his other wife right there. I say when he not yelling at people, man, he
Now you have multiple wives, right? When I met you last weekend in LA, you introduced a young lady as one of your wives. I was like, whoa, I need to get to know this man. How you pull that off?
We say love is law, family is business. And of course people will say that is pimping because we normally we find the closest reference point to whatever it is we're trying to understand. Right? So with a lack of knowledge, the first thing we'll go to is that's kind of like pimping. No, pimping is a perversion of what's in us genetically. Okay, it's just a perversion of the same. So we say love is law, family is business. All the words that we look at that women particularly want in a relationship there's a dichotomy to it. And if we lean towards the business aspect, by default, we'll get into the emotional clause. So when we say love is law, family is business, like for instance, in law, a friend is one who's willing to invest in you and one you're willing to invest in. So we start off as friends. But remember, love is law, family is business. The people that rule the world, Illuminati, whoever you want to call them, we know that they're all tied in by blood. Bankers, we call them. But we know they're all tied in by blood. They're families. So now we have to start doing the same thing. When people are at war, it is imperative that the women can be able to cleave on to another family. I don't suggest every brother do this. You got to be able to have a monogamous and successful relationship before you can even think about having a 2-fold, 3-fold, 4-fold relationship. So let's just start it on a monogamous level. Love is law, family is business. A friend is one who's willing to invest in you or one you're willing to invest in. Friend. Then the woman wants what? She wants a sense of security, right? And we went over what a security is. But the security is a paper certificate that attests to ownership and equity. Ownership of what? Well, the man and the woman should go into business with each other. So let's say they purchase a property. Trust. She wants trust too. Context of the same because the dichotomy to the when property is held on behalf of another, and the security is going to identify the equity as it relates to the contract. And now we have a bond. And the bond is what? A debt obligation. So now I'm going to have shares. We're going to say we're going to split this mom 50-50 down the line. You feel what I'm saying? Sense of security, we got trust, and we got friendship. When we buy this property, let's say we get some tenants and we start renting it out. When you make money off of something that you invested in, it appreciates. So now she got appreciation. She wants a sense of appreciation. And then you got what? Consideration. Consideration is when two parties identify an asset and decide to go into business with each other because they feel it's reciprocity is going to take place, or that it's going to be a venture that's going to be mutually beneficial to the both of them. In law, that's called consideration. So we got consideration, we got appreciation, we got trust, we got security, we got bond.
Now you have multiple wives, right? When I met you last,
You come to terms with what we have to do with it.
Yeah, my dude's smart as shit, yo. But when you get heated, you can't get the motherfucker to shut up. You know what? I think that's the exact same clip that got me banned the last time. This might be my last fucking stream right here, guys. Damn, I forgot all about that shit, because this fucking... That clip was from the Breakfast Club. But... yeah, Brother Polite, yo, that fucker is super, super smart.
Mr. Moody taught me. It's a friend of mine who I had done some really big things from.
Trying to look up some more news on that fucking coronavirus. Yo, they say there is a cruise ship that was leaving Italy, and a husband and wife couple were carrying, are suspected of carrying the new coronavirus, and so now they have a whole fucking cruise ship quarantine off. 6,000 people on that shit. Trying to figure out, because this one lady got real sick. Now they're trying to figure out what the fuck that was that got her sick, and if it is this fucking virus, then ain't no telling how many people she exposed to that shit. It's getting real, yo.
Are we going to work on Monday, or is work going to be canceled? So if they want people to not travel, they're going to have to announce soon whether there's some kind of national work stoppage. Because the only national work stoppage I'm aware of is the holiday being extended to February 3rd for the country.
213 dead, 9,821 confirmed cases. But then, like a little while ago, hey Siri, how many people died from the Ebola virus?
Okay, I found this on the web for how many people died from the Ebola virus. Check it out.
Let's see. So this is from last update, March 17th, 2016. Is that it? On March 22nd, 2 years have passed since the health authorities in Ghana officially declared the outbreak of Ebola in the country. Since then, the World Health Organization has declared the region free of Ebola transmission twice. Only a few new cases to reemerge hours after announcement. Both occasions have retarded the long-awaited celebration and has highlighted the risk of disease reemerging due to viral persistence in some survivors. The most terrifying epidemic of the last years leaves behind a devastating trail that starts with the number of dead, 11,300, and infected 28,000 people, and that has further weakened the health system and economic perspectives of the region. that was struggling to leave its past behind. Today, we are well aware that the international community response was too little and too late. But governance of the affected countries and the money of their and the memory of the victims will be doubled if, after having allowed this crisis to develop beyond control, we choose to ignore the key lessons that can be drawn. One major lesson is that the fight against Ebola or any other global health threat starts well before the first case is diagnosed. So they're saying that in the 2 years that Ebola, really before they thought they had a complete eradication of it, it affected 28,000 people and 11,300 people died. That's almost half. That's crazy. I didn't know that almost half of everybody who caught Ebola died. And that shit was basically mostly in Africa too, like Hey Siri, how many people died from the Spanish flu?
Okay, I found this on the web for how many people died from the Spanish flu. Check it out.
The Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, the deadliest in history, infected an estimated 500 million people worldwide, about 1/3 of the planet's population, and killed an estimated 20 to 50 million victims, including some 675,000 Americans. The 1918 flu was first observed in Europe, the United States, and parts of Asia before swiftly spreading around the world. At the time, there were no effective drugs or vaccines to treat this killer flu strand. Citizens were ordered to wear masks. Schools, theaters, and businesses were shuttered and bodies piled up in makeshift morgues before the virus ended its deadly global march. $675,000 people in America died from that shit. But that, once again, that was in 1918. So, yeah, you have to think about the medicines and everything, even just just the technologies to examine these shits and to create some kind of antigen or antibody or vaccination from this thing. And at the same time, it's like all this shit is about fucking sanitation, yo. Whoa. The first wave of the 1918 pandemic occurred in the spring. It was generally mild. The sick who experienced such typical flu symptoms as chills, fever, and fatigue usually recovered after several days, and the number of reported deaths was low. However, a second highly contagious wave of influenza appeared with a vengeance in the fall of the same year. Victims died within hours or days after developing symptoms. Their skins turned blue and their lungs filled with fluid that caused them to suffocate. In just 1 year, 1918, the average life expectancy in America plummeted by a dozen years. It's unknown exactly where the particular strand of influenza that caused the pandemic came from. However, the 1918 flu was first observed in Europe, America, Asia. And it's just starting to repeat the same thing I read in the beginning. Despite the fact that the flu wasn't isolated to one place, it became known around the world as the Spanish flu, as Spain was hit hard by the disease and was not subject to the wartime news blackouts that affected other European countries. Even Spain's King Alfonso XIII reportedly contracted the flu. One unusual aspect of the flu was that it struck down many previously healthy young people, a group normally resistant to this type of infectious illness, including a number of World War I servicemen. In fact, more U.S. soldiers died from the 1918 flu than were killed in battle during the war. 40% of the U.S. Navy was hit with the flu, while 36% of the Army became ill, and troops moved around the world in crowded ships and trains helped to spread the virus. So, this shit is not unheard of. Hey Siri, how many people died during the plague?
Plague is an infectious disease caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. Symptoms include fever, weakness, and headache.
Stop.
Shall I continue?
No. How many people died during the Black Plague of Europe?
Okay, I found this on the web for how many people died during the Black Plague of Europe. Check it out.
It was called the Black Plague or the Black Death. The Black Death, the greatest catastrophe ever. O.J. Benedictwell describes how he calculated that the Black Death killed 50 million people in the 14th century, or 60% of Europe's entire population. This disastrous mortal disease known as the Black Death spread across Europe in the year 1346 to 53. The frightening name, however, only came several centuries after its visitation and was probably a mistranslation of the Latin word atara, meaning both terrible and black. Chronicles and letters from the time describe the terror wrought by the illness. In France, the great Renaissance poet Petrarch was sure that they would not be believed. Oh, happy posterity who will not experience such abysmal woe and will look upon testimony as fable. A Florentine Chronicles relates that. So this shit is, these plagues and these shits come and they go. Mostly, like they say, they're resilient. Youngsters will just be able to endure when you're in the prime of your life, and you're producing, healthy amounts of estrogen or testosterone, and your immune system is strong. You can combat shit like this. But normally it's like infants and the elderly who have a hard time getting over these things. But like I say, a couple thousand people died. 11,000 people died from Ebola. just a couple years ago, and before that, like SARS, Zika, the bird flu, the swine flu, the West Nile virus, H1N1. Like there's been so many different fucking things. Like, but the best thing we have now is just technology. And that's the thing, is like, it's so weird that China let this shit get out of hand, knowing that there's ways to combat this shit.
Of new confirmed cases by day. Hang on. New confirmed cases by day. That's not total cases, that's new cases. So generally speaking, the number of new cases is going up. And the blue is Hubei province. I don't know, this one day was like an aberration. I don't know if that was like, they like cleared a backlog of people or something. But it's aside from that one day, it's pretty consistent. You know, it's pretty much like, yeah. I'll use the line here. You know, something like that. One thing, roughly speaking. And then this one down here, the Hubei cases, you know, something like that. That's new cases by day. That's at Global Times. And in terms of the number of deaths by day, that's the new deaths every day. And again, as we've said, you know, while the absolute numbers have been increasing every day, the rate of growth from day to day seems to be slowing. So the percentage amount it goes up each day seems to be slowing. But the problem is we don't know if that's the actual number, because the amount of suspected cases has gone way up the last couple of days, and it's possible that a testing shortage is keeping the actual numbers down. We don't know that.
Boy.
CNN International posted this today. This is from today. According to a nurse in Wuhan, staff are overwhelmed, resources are running low, and there are no beds. There are so few hazmat suits that staff disinfect them to wear the next day. Around 30 of the 500 medical staff at her hospital are now sick.
Whoa.
That's from today.
Whoa.
Look at this. Will admit them if they're dying. Virus outbreak pushes China's stretched healthcare workers to breaking point. This person who flew back to China from the United Kingdom 3 weeks after she arrived in China, it's clear the outbreak is not under control. The virus has spread to every Chinese province and region. Now it's over 9,800 cases. On Monday, preliminary results showed she could also be infected with the virus. But she is more worried for her family, for her 67-year-old father, who appears to have the virus too, and for her mother, who's been uprooted to what she describes as an older, inferior hospital building, to make way for the rush of coronavirus patients. Over the past few days, CNN has spoken to patients, medical staff, and experts who have told in delays in testing for the virus, delays in telling the public of the true nature of the virus spread and of an already overburdened health system creaking under the enormous weight of a rapidly expanding outbreak. Let's see here. This expert believes the number of infections was likely underreported by the Wuhan authorities in December and the start of January. Slow testing. This person, who began to have a fever on January 26th, she went to the hospital's fever clinic where she found over 20 patients all waiting to be tested by one doctor. She says she was given 3 tests, a nasal swipe to rule out the flu. So they can give you a nasal swipe to rule out the flu. A CT scan to compare her lungs against those of infected patients, and a blood test. After 9 hours of tests and waiting for results, she said the doctor told her she had the coronavirus, but because he could not give her the 4th and most definitive test, she could only be considered a suspected patient. You know, a viewer sent me this. One of our viewers sent me this. I don't know that this is how they define suspected patient. So it would be interesting. It would be interesting if this is how they defined everybody as a suspected patient. But for all I know, in different places, there are different requirements to be put on the suspected patient list. In this case, now, and also, this doesn't tell you that someone has to pass all of these, this doesn't tell you that this is the only kind of case in which somebody's a suspected patient. So, but it's interesting to see that there. But it shows you there could be a suspected patient who the doctor actually believes after tests has the coronavirus. Her and her 67-year-old father are in the same situation. So it looks like they have it. They're just not classified as official patients yet. She called hospitals all over Wuhan, trying in vain to find one with the confirmation test, a reagent test which chemically tests for the virus. For now, she and her father are not counted in the official statistics. Now, there's this question about people catching it in the hospital. This expert, professor of pathology, said it was no surprise that she could have caught the virus in the hospital. He points out viruses can easily spread within a hospital if doctors don't take proper precautions.
Duh.
Others, like she, have experienced delays in tests or have struggled to get tested at all. One Wuhan resident said she and her young son have had a CT scan and a nucleic acid test, a lab examination to identify a virus. They still haven't gotten confirmation of coronavirus, and until they do, they cannot be admitted to the hospital. Her husband, parents, and her parents, his parents and her parents are already in the hospital with the virus, and she's convinced she and her son are likely to have the virus too. This person was in a similar position. He went to a dedicated coronavirus hospital, but he says they delayed testing him for days and would not admit him until he receives a formal diagnosis. These reports of test delays come amid assurances from a Chinese manufacturer that it can produce enough testing kits to meet nationwide demand. The company said it can produce 8,000 boxes per day. Wuhan's Communist Party chief on Tuesday said before mid-January, samples had to be sent to the Chinese CDC. From mid-January, Wuhan was able to test around 300 cases a day. You know what's interesting? The last 2 days, the number of cases in Wuhan has been around like 350. The last 2 days, the number of cases in Wuhan has been around 350, and there's been way more from that in Hubei province. But if they can only test around 300 cases a day in Wuhan, there could be, then they're not going to have much more than 300 cases a day that they can report. So that number the last 2 days from Wuhan, like 350 or whatever, might literally be the limit of the testing they can do. That's interesting. That's really interesting. So, it might just be the case that it might be a significant, there might be a significant cap on the number of cases they can report every day if they can only test around 300 cases a day in Wuhan.
Whatever they're doing, we're not getting the full numbers. That's the whole fucking deal. There is no way for the rest of the world to know what China's doing with their fucking numbers, yo. Like I said, they're saying it's only 9,821 confirmed cases. But how many people are sick and dying in like small rural areas where there aren't any major hospitals? How many people are sick and dying and just don't want to go to the hospital? And how long did it take before they even started really counting these people as carriers of this virus? I mean, they've had some outrageously high numbers already. Like, some people are saying, oh, it's 90,000 people are infected with this shit. 100,000 people infected. But then the official number is less than 10,000. But they're like, oh no, it's 10 times that much. They're running out of beds in their hospitals, and they keep talking about, oh, we're going to build this 1,000-bed hospital. Oh, no, now we're going to build 2 of them. So that's only 2,000 extra beds when your confirmed cases are almost 10,000. So it's, I don't know. It's so hard to, 1 hour ago. This is from a different news site right here.
An update on the spread of the deadly coronavirus. Now, a short time ago, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak an international public health emergency. The organization's Director General explains why they've taken this step.
The main reason for this declaration is not because of what is happening in China, but because of what is happening in other countries. Our greatest concern is the potential for the virus to spread to countries with weaker health systems and which are ill prepared to deal with it.
Well, the virus has now spread mainly in China, with more than 8,000 confirmed infections there, at least 170 deaths. But it has touched many other parts of the world. And the number of coronavirus infections has just surpassed the number of infections in the SARS epidemic, which hit in the early 2000s. In mainland China alone, the coronavirus cases have outpaced SARS' global total, although right now the death rate is much lower. Let's take a look at how quickly the virus has spread. Just last Friday, there were only 941 global cases confirmed. Now, less than a week later, that's jumped nearly 9 times higher. And the numbers, are still rising. Well, meanwhile, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have just confirmed the first case of human-to-human transmission here in the United States. Well, I want to take a closer look at this right now with our Chief Medical Correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Good to have you here with us to break this all down. So the World Health Organization says it's making this declaration not because of China, but because of other countries affected by this. Just practically, what does this declaration mean?
Well, so, and the other countries that are affected by this, there are many of them, but in at least 5 other countries besides China, you're now seeing human-to-human transmission. Last time the World Health Organization met, they said, yeah, we acknowledge this is an emergency in China. Let's wait and see what happens in the rest of the world. And now we see it. And so there's evidence of spread, and there's evidence that that spread will grow. What this is not, this public health emergency, is not more funding, really. You know, it's not more financial resources necessarily, although it may be a redistribution of resources, especially to countries that need it, you know, developing countries where they may have a harder time taking care of an emerging outbreak like this. It also, I think, sends a signal how important this is to the world, and may impact trade, may impact travel in terms of what these countries are going to do to try and mitigate the outbreak. We're seeing some of that already, obviously. Exactly, the biggest quarantine in history right now taking place in China. There's been these travel restrictions out of China. So you're seeing some of that. I think you're going to see that more amplified now as a result of this declaration.
Yeah, exactly. 60 million people in China already facing travel restrictions, which is significant. And the WHO initially were reluctant to declare this a public health emergency because they were worried about the economic implications. They were worried people would cancel their business trips and their holidays. But clearly they now must think that the benefit of doing this outweighs that risk.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think that was the reason they were hesitant to do this before. It's a big deal. And by the way, these declarations, they didn't exist before SARS. SARS sort of made the World Health Organization realize they needed some sort of body and some sort of declaration like this to be able to handle it. So you've had, you know, H1N1, Ebola, Zika, things like that. So this is another public health emergency. And I think that the idea that you're going to be able to signal to these countries what is appropriate in terms of travel and trade